Welcome everybody. My name is Dean Williams. We'll do a quick round of introductions, but just want to open it up and say thanks. We've been working on this for almost 18 months now. This is we're pretty excited to finally release the draft over the last month or so. Open it up for public comment, and this is our final public meeting of the draft plan. We're still accepting public comments through email or via survey that's available. So feel free to continue to provide any comments. I believe those close in about 20 days. And then this whole plan will be brought to the KACTS policy board on December 3rd for approval. But I'll hand it over to the rest of the team. We'll start. Just to clarify, I'm Dean Williams. I'm the transportation director at SMPDC. Mar, do you want to go?
Thanks, Dean. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Mar Fink, Sustainability and Transportation Planner at SAPDC, and I can pass it over to Laura.
Hi, everyone. Laura Machula. I am the project manager from AECOM. Really excited to be here and tell you about the draft plan. I'll pass it over to Zoe.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zoe Miller, and I'm with Zoe Miller Strategies, and I do engagement for plans like this. So I will do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll jump into the agenda. But you'll be able to use the chat as you saw. We also have the Q&A box open, so if you have questions that you want to throw in there, we'll be sure to check that out and refer to them when we get to the Q&A section of tonight. So Mar, if you'd go on to the agenda. So, oh, yeah, there we go. So we wanted to start by giving you the bigger picture of what KACTS is and what this plan is all about. Then we will give an overview of the plan itself, the sections that make it up. We'll talk a bit about how the process for plan adoption, and then give you a walkthrough of the story map, which is a really neat tool for the region that will be available going forward. And it's a great resource for being able to check out the data. And then we'll have time for folks to ask questions and provide us with any feedback. So I will jump into the just talking about what is KACTS. So the Kittery Area Comprehensive Transportation System, quite a mouthful. But KACTS is a federally designated metropolitan planning organization. And MPOs, as we like to call them for short, play three major roles that are depicted here on the slide. So MPOs facilitate planning, and so that happens with individually with towns and cities, and then also regionally, and also working with the different entities that provide transportation services in the region. Federal law requires that urbanized areas with populations over 50,000 people have an MPO to represent them. And that means that provides some good things for the region, and that it means there are more resources. And it also means that there's the opportunity to come together and coordinate around allocating funding. And so that comes into play both for the dollars that flow from the feds down to the MPO region, and then also for looking out for opportunities to bring more dollars into the region. You can go on to the next slide. So KACTS, like most MPOs, really is a connector. And so it sits at the crossroads of the different stakeholders in the region. And so the folks who probably spend the most time working with KACTS and the staff of KACTS are people who are elected or appointed to work in the municipal and state government, and then also transportation providers. There's also often folks from community organizations and acre institutions coming to the table. and often consultants coming in to help provide more capacity for projects. The public plays a big role, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then really any other stakeholders. So, I think I don't have to tell folks who are here tonight that transportation is really a critical piece connecting across all the different sectors. And so I think, we would argue that everybody should be paying attention to what KACTS is doing. So next slide. So just quickly, a little info about the way the role of the public in the work of KACTS. KACTS is the location where decisions are getting made about many important transportation investments and about how we take action around safety and really how we can adapt for the future, whether it's about climate, the economy, or housing. And so there's lots of ways for the public to interact with KACTS. And I think through the SMPDC website and the materials that KACTS shares there, I would encourage folks to check out the resources there. There's ways to be involved through committees. There's frequent surveys. There's maps. And so I think y'all made your way here tonight. So you've obviously had some experience working with KACTS. So on to the next slide. So I'll jump into talking a bit about what this plan is. And so also a mouthful, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, but we'll call it the MTP for short. This is the big plan that MPOs do. And it's looking out 20 plus years and really thinking in terms of a long-term vision for the region, identifying what the needs are and how folks in the region want to address those needs. And as much as we can know today about the future, bringing all that data together, there's just an amazing, I was struck by how much amazing data is within this plan. And that can be a resource to come back to. So as towns are making decisions, as organizations are making decisions, this plan is really a major resource. It's also like a compass guiding decisions. And you'll see through the goals and strategies of the plan that it really tries to align with where we want to see the region go in terms of land use. Where are we putting development in terms of housing? Where can new housing be built? And pulling those pieces together. So the next slide. So an MTP really starts with describing what already exists in terms of the infrastructure, the services, and the safety in the region. It identifies what the needs are. And so, as you'll see, we'll talk a bit more about how that's done through both data and through conversations with people in the region. And that's, talking to people on the street about what would they like to see in the future, and talking with people who are, who do that, who work for municipalities and are thinking every day about the future of the region. And then taking those two pieces, the plan looks at how should federal and state funds be used over the next 20 years, and establishing goals and strategies that speak to those uses. And the required elements for the plan, so again, it needs to have at least a 20-year planning horizon, which I think is really, intended to get us thinking beyond, what needs to happen in the near future. So really getting folks and planners from municipalities to be thinking beyond, beyond the current budget cycle, and developing strategies with thinking comprehensively. So thinking about all the different modes and how they interface with each other. The plan is required to be updated every 5 years, and so this is an update, but I would say this is a pretty big update. It's a pretty significantly larger body of, as I said, the data that's in there is much greater than was in the previous plan. So within that, there's forecasts for population and employment in the future, and the analysis of the existing facilities. There's some analysis of financial capacity, and then also a project list. And I have one more slide that I'll talk about, and then I will turn it over to Laura to dig in more to what's in the plan. So I hit on this a little bit already, but I think that some of the values that and having the MTP, what it has as a value for the communities in the region and the region as a whole, is it's a great tool for educating the public about what's existing, about the trends, about what's coming in the future. The process of creating this plan brought together decision makers from across the different communities and many different stakeholders. So it's really an opportunity for folks to work together to build consensus around a vision. We had a steering committee that included a young person who attends Trape Academy, folks who work in environmental organizations, people working in housing and social services. So it really offers an opportunity to be thinking about transportation and land use at the same time, and gives the opportunity to align the needs across the different sectors. And so ultimately, it's giving KACTS the ability to have projects queued up to be able to get funding, and to have, be thinking ahead about what do folks prioritize as a region, and so that when funding opportunities show up, that thinking has already happened and they don't need to be scrambling to come up with plans. So I will hand it over now to Laura to talk more in detail about the plan.
Thanks, Zoe. First of all, can you guys hear me? Make sure. Yes. Okay, great. So as Zoe said earlier, the major plan components are an analysis of the existing conditions. So that's looking at transportation facilities, all types from pedestrian all the way up to freight. And I will say the MTP, another fun fact about it is that we're talking about surface transportation. So it may, talk about a road that leads up to an airport, but not the actual air service itself. Surface transportation, existing conditions. And then we're going to look at transportation needs. So that's, I'll touch more on that here going through on the next slides. Then projects and the scenarios that they can sort of be viewed through, and also looking at what we think the population and the other conditions in the region will be in the future. So let me jump through those in the next slides. So in terms of doing an existing conditions analysis, like I said, we look at the infrastructure and services, as well as safety conditions for everything from facilities that pedestrians use, like sidewalks, bicycle facilities, whether they're on road or trail, transit service, rail, passenger rail, roads that drivers drive on, and then freight operations, whether that's on road or on rail. So we basically survey and look at and analyze and summarize the conditions and the services for all of these different modes. Next slide. When we do our needs assessment, we take the existing conditions analysis and we combine it with a couple of other things. One of the major things we combine it with is feedback we receive through the public process that Zoe was describing. So we, in addition to the feedback we received from the public during many different pop-up events and a survey that we deployed, we also had a steering committee guiding the work, and we got feedback and had touch points with the KACTS policy committee. The existing conditions and the public and stakeholder feedback process, those were sort of the two main factors that went into combining the vision for the plan. But we also did an analysis of who lives in the region in terms of the demographics of the population. And of course, we also looked at recent studies and plans that have been done in the region that pertain to transportation and what were sort of the recommendations that come out of those. So the demographic analysis of the population, the existing conditions analysis, looking at the transportation facilities and services, the feedback we received from the public and stakeholders, and then also the work that's been done in the region that's pertinent to these modes in recent years. We looked at those recommendations as well to develop overarching strategies, guiding principles, and then implementation strategies for the plan. So the vision that was created through that process that I just described is on the screen. I'm just going to read it in case anyone needs that. The KACTS region is the gateway to southern Maine, encompassing the towns of Berwick, Elliott, Kennebunkport, Kittery, Ogunquit, Wells, and York. Our vision is of a KACTS region that is resilient, sustainable, and connected with a safe and efficient multimodal transportation system that provides access to opportunity and age-friendly choices for all. So this is what we're basically trying to achieve through the strategies and the projects that are in this plan. So next slide. During the public outreach process, I mentioned a survey earlier. We got 442 responses. We did 6 in-person pop-up events at different places like, the farmers market and other locations where we engaged with about 75 people. And we also engaged with 25 municipal decision makers. So the overarching strategies of the plan are prioritization of funding, looking to prioritize projects and investments by allocating funds that align with the guiding principles that I'll be discussing in a moment. Transparency, collaboration, equity, looking at providing transparent and accessible planning processes that include equitable public and stakeholder involvement. And then efficient project implementation. So striving for efficient implementation once the region has collaborated and decided to work on something. So the next slide, please. The guiding principles that we kind of have that house the strategies that are contained in the plan. And like I said, these are really, really tied to the public feedback we received, the existing conditions analysis, the analysis of the demographics of the population that live in the region, as well as all of the recently completed plans and studies that pertain to surface transportation. All of that was funneled into the guiding principles. So those are those blue bars that you're seeing across your screen. These guiding principles pertain to safety and resilience, efficiency, reliability, and maintenance. So making sure to preserve and maintain the system in a state of good repair, transportation options and access for all. We want to improve public transportation, biking, walking, and other alternatives to driving, supporting economic vitality by enabling the efficient, safe movement of people and goods, connecting communities, so supporting a connected system that removes transportation barriers and fosters thriving neighborhoods, vibrant villages and centers, so promoting inviting, livable, and distinctive villages and centers with destinations and amenities for all. And then also, and these are in no particular order, I should mention, healthy and sustainable environment. So making sure we consider any negative impacts on air quality, waterways, other natural habitats when we're making decisions about transportation. So the implementation strategies that, like I said, are housed under those guiding principles are on your screen now. They are cross-cutting. So all of them hit on more than one guiding principle. And you'll see that when we take you into the story map that Zoe mentioned to kind of have a nice overview of the plan. But I'll go ahead and describe and read each one of these just so that folks make sure that everyone is on board with what they are. Air quality and greenhouse gas emissions, so looking to support reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and improving air quality, looking to promote complete and green streets. So these are streets that work well for people who are walking, people who are biking, people who are taking transit, as well as drivers, making sure that infrastructure on streets is sustainable and resilient, promoting electric vehicles usage and infrastructure, making sure that our transportation system supports emergency preparedness, equitable access to technology, so making sure that people are able to access transportation resources and knowledge, equitable investment. So we want to make sure that the investments that we make in our system are supporting the region, but in an equitable way. So if there are parts of the region that are most in need of investment or have populations that are most in need of certain types of transportation, we want to make sure we're taking that into account. Goods movement, so this is a fancy word for freight. Green infrastructure, I mentioned complete and green streets earlier, but just making sure that across the board we are investing in infrastructure that is sustainable, especially important in this region being that it's a coastal region. Mobility innovation, so making sure that we're supporting the use of innovative technology when it comes to transportation services and infrastructure. More mode choices, making sure that, you know, the projects we're supporting, the work that the region is doing is supportive of not just providing infrastructure for drivers, but for all modes. We have an emphasis here in public transportation. It's important to make sure that, you know, everyone has access to transportation and access to opportunity, and that's often done through public transit. Regional connections, making sure that the region is well connected to others. Safety, I should mention these are in alphabetical order, not in any particular order otherwise. So safety, very important, making sure that our system for walking, biking, taking transit, driving, etc., is safe. Making sure that our system is efficient, that people are able to move about in an efficient way. System preservation, making sure that we are investing in our system and not letting it get into a state of disrepair. And then also this plan, we're putting forward an emphasis on trails and bikeways and making sure that that people have access to those as they cross the region. So I mentioned all of the I mentioned the guiding principles and all of those strategies that are sort of nestled under them. Another key component of an MTP, a Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And I should mention, I don't know if we did at the beginning, but we branded this MTP. It's called Southern Maine in Motion, and we have a really nice little logo that you guys can see there on the map that I think is super cute and fun. So Southern Maine in Motion includes an illustrative list of projects, and I say illustrative because these are projects that kind of aren't mostly far enough advanced that we have like definite project costs for them, but they are conceived of as projects that are prioritized or are priorities at the regional level. And so we have them in our MTP, not as projects that we can quote unquote fiscally constrain, i.e. compare against a forecasted amount of money that we think the region will have for transportation going forward and over the next 20 years. But nonetheless, they are projects that we are listing as priorities in this plan. And the purpose of the plan, as Zoe said earlier, one of them is to help prioritize projects. So we did a call for projects as part of the plan that was conducted in the spring, and we got 53 projects and 12 applicants. The evaluation criteria, i.e. the questionnaire that applicants had to fill out, and the eligible applicants were essentially the towns in the region and other agencies like transit agencies and Maine state agencies that operate transit or have transit facilities in the region. So I should say that the evaluation criteria were really based on those guiding principles. So basically, the projects that scored the highest through this questionnaire that we put forward that had evaluation criteria in them were the ones that most aligned with the guiding principles that we developed through this planning process. So we received, like I said, 53 projects, and we classified them in different ways and looked at different scenarios that kind of package them and have a lens in which to view them. So the ways that we did that were through primary mode, through context classification, and also by corridor. So 236 and Route 1 are major corridors in the region, and we organized, for instance, projects that were in very close proximity to each of those corridors to sort of provide a way that the region can look at the corridor as a whole and coordinate those projects that are priorities for the different towns that go through the region. And we think this also really aligns with the system that Maine DOT has rolled out, in which it is really looking to the MPOs to do corridor level planning and coordination. I mentioned forecasting the future. It's a 20-year plan. Some MTPs look out even further, but as Zoe mentioned, there's a 20-year plan horizon for this one. And we looked at, we want to look at what is the population and the household and the employment makeup going to look like going out into the future. We used projections from a Maine state agency called, well, it's actually one specific person I found out, but she has a team, the Maine State Economist. And they use census data and do some additional vetting to come up with population and household estimates. We also use some state employment data to come up with the employment forecast. The long and the short of it is this region is growing more than many regions in Maine and is predicted to grow more than many regions in Maine over the next 20 years. Not a super fast level or high level of growth, but a steady clip of growth. And we think the region by and large has capacity on its roadways to handle that. And so we're not proposing any roadway expansions or new interchanges or anything like that you might see in other regions that are really growing quickly. Instead, this plan, looking at the forecast that we have, looking at the feedback that we got from the public, the existing conditions, et cetera, is really putting forward projects and transportation strategies that align with those guiding principles that I discussed earlier. So I want to give people a little bit of information about how they can find out more. Maybe this group already knows this, but just in case you don't, on the KACTS website right now, there is a link to a website called a story map. And a story map is an interactive website that offers information, including most of the time maps, in this case for sure maps, that summarize things that are in the plan. So the Southern Maine in Motion MTP story map is available now. This is the landing page for it. You can see the vision in that snip on the slide. And I just wanted to walk people through what is included in the story map that they can look at. So the introduction just basically talks about a lot of the things we've covered today. What is an MPO? What is an MTP? What does it need to contain? What was the process for creating it? We also go through this particular MTP update. So on that, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second, but essentially you can click to download the whole plan if you want to look at it. This story map really summarizes a lot of the major components, as does this public meeting. But you'll see that the next slide, Mar, will have the projects that I mentioned, where you can actually click on the map and see the different projects. The draft plan tab, next slide, shows, oh, I guess we didn't have a slide for that. I apologize. The draft plan tab has a link to download the plan and view it that way. Next slide. And then if you want to get into the demographic data, i.e., what is the makeup of the population of the region, you can click on this Who Lives in the KACTS Region section of the story map and get into, all kinds of things related to the income level of the population, the number of households, all kinds of information, related to age, disability status, zero vehicle households, etc. And then next slide. Oh, here's the draft plan slide. my bad. So on the draft plan slide, you can click on the plan and look at it. And then on the next link to the right of draft plan, you see tell us what you think. And that's what you're seeing here on the bottom. So one way to give us feedback is to fill out this little survey that's on the story map. You can also send an email to Southern Maine in Motion at smpdc.org. And I think, as Dean said at the beginning, we are receiving, we're open for public comment through 5 p.m. on November 25th. So still a bunch of time left to give feedback. The next steps of the plan, or adopting the plan, will be, like I said just a second ago, to leave the public comment period open through the 25th, receive public comment, integrate that feedback into the draft before finalizing it and having the KACTS committee vote for it at its December policy committee meeting. So that's what we're doing right now. That's where we are right now. And I think, Mar, is there oh, here we go. That leads me to our last slide, which has my contact information as well as Zoe's. And I'm wondering if anyone has any questions or comments they'd like to make. Feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand, come off mute. And it's okay if you don't have any. I just wanted to ask. We are also happy for you to send them in, like I said, through the StoryMap website survey tool or through the email address that I mentioned at the beginning of or sorry, just now at the end of the meeting.
Doesn't seem. Oh, we got one comment. Very cool from Avery.
Love it.
Very cool of you to come and and provide some feedback, Avery. We appreciate it. Uh, doesn't seem like we have anybody else. So, um, thanks a lot, everybody, for coming. And like I said, look forward to getting any more written comment.
Definitely. Thank you all for spending the last bit of time with us. We really appreciate it.